To other stories now, the European Union is pledging 75 million euros to Kosovo, and this is to tackle the energy crisis. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said during a visit in Pristina today that the Balkan country will get the funding by January. The funding is part of a 500 million EU regional grant to West Balkan nations to face the energy costs, fund renewable energy sources. She said all Balkan countries will be invited to buy gas on the global market together with other EU member states and will also benefit from reduced gas and electricity prices. She praised Kosovo's reforms to match EU requirements on rule of law, with the country eyeing EU membership and the Balkan nations' full application of EU sanctions against Russia.
Russia is terrorizing the citizens of Ukraine, deliberately bombing and targeting infrastructure, civil infrastructure, in the attempt to cut off Ukrainian men, women and children of electricity, water, heating with the winter approaching. And we see that Russia is using energy very strategically as a weapon, manipulating the markets. And you feel here in Kosovo, of course, also the knock-on effects of this unbelievable behavior with the rising energy prices, the difficulties in security of supply. But right now you need immediate support, immediate financial budget support. So we will grant 75 million euros for the immediate support of vulnerable households or vulnerable businesses, and we will finalize all the necessary procedures to the end of the year so that you can get the funding as of January for your budget. You have shown time and again your commitment to the values of the European Union, and especially most recently again with your full alignment on the EU sanctions in response to Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. You are undertaking ambitious reforms, and I know that this is easily said but difficult to be done, and I really commend you for that. And this hard work that Kosovo has undertook is reflected in our last enlargement report, which is very positive for Kosovo. I hear you loud and clear on the topic of visa liberalization, and you know you have an ally in the Commission and me personally to that topic. You're right. I think Kosovo deserves the visa liberalization. I know how important it is for you. You have fulfilled all the benchmarks. And indeed, it was our assessment already in July. But also now we have reaffirmed that you, in July 2018, but we have reaffirmed now that you have fulfilled all the necessary criteria, and we stand by it. Now our task is to convince the whole of the European Council. Many members of the European Council are on your side.
To more bilateral relations, the Israeli and Lebanese leaders finalized a US-brokered maritime demarcation, bringing a measure of accommodation between the enemy states as they eye offshore energy exploration. The Israeli defense minister, who's running for prime minister in next week's Israeli election, has also met with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. Relations between Turkey and Israel have been rocky since 2011, when Ankara expelled Israel's ambassador following a 2010 Israeli raid on the Mavi Marmara aid ship to Gaza, which killed 10 Turkish citizens. The rift healed when full diplomatic relations were restored in 2016 and two countries exchanged ambassadors.
Government, led by Prime Minister Yair Lapid, approved a landmark US-brokered maritime border deal with Lebanon after convening at a cabinet. Similarly, Lebanese President Michel Aoun signed a letter approving the deal in Bada, followed by Prime Minister Yair Lapid's signature in Jerusalem. Lapid hails the deal as a tremendous achievement, and Lebanese negotiator Elias Boussab says it marks the beginning of a new era between the two sides, which nevertheless remains technically at war.
This is a diplomatic achievement. It is not every day that an enemy country recognizes the state of Israel. in a written agreement in view of the international community. It is not every day the United States and France stand behind us and provide security and economic guarantees for an agreement. This is also an economic achievement.
Meanwhile, the United States will officially announce the deal as coming into force in Lebanon and Israel, which is still technically in a state of war, will submit their new border coordinates to the United Nations.
I think what's important now that we've reached this milestone is not just this milestone, but what happens from here. And I truly believe and hope that this can be an economic turning point in Lebanon for a new era of investment and continued support to lift up the economy and make sure that whatever arrangements happen, they're done openly, transparently, and making sure that the benefits are felt directly by all the Lebanese people.
The agreement opens the way for offshore energy exploration and removes one source of potential conflict between Israel and Iranian-backed Lebanese group Hezbollah, and could help alleviate Lebanon's economic crisis.
Still ahead on the program. Rowing team gears up for 5,000-kilometer challenge to cross the Atlantic Ocean to raise awareness on plastic pollution in the ocean. Details shortly. Welcome back. With presidential elections coming up on Sunday, Brazil's main contenders are dividing the voters with the issue of gun control, as the country has seen a surge in violence during the campaigns. The day after a Workers' Party PT official was shot dead by a supporter of the far-right Brazilian president Jair Bolsonaro in July, the federal police guarding his leftist campaign rival sent a classified memo to senior colleagues across Brazil. They were calling for backup. In the document seen by local reports, the officers warned that former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's safety was threatened by radicalized opponents, increasingly armed with deadly weapons due to Bolsonaro's loosening of gun controls. They asked the top federal police officers in each state to reinforce Lula's campaign events with bulletproof cars, tactical teams, drones, and intelligence reports. To Asia, where South Korea conducted annual anti-terror drills today, simulating explosive and chemical attacks at a convention center in Goyang. About 300 personnel from 7 organizations, including police, Coast Guard, Defense Ministry, Fire Agency, Environment Ministry, and National Intelligence Service, NIS, were mobilized at drills at the Kintex, the Korea International Exhibition Center. According to the Prime Minister's office, the drills, which were organized by the Anti-Terror Center of that office, simulated explosive and chemical attacks, along with a hostage situation and fire. Drones and robots were also seen detecting chemicals and extinguishing fire at the drills. In recent weeks, South Korea has held a number of military drills, both on its own and with strategic allies, amid tensions with North Korea. Meanwhile, China is urging the United States to stop playing with fire on the Taiwan question. The Chinese Ministry of National Defense spokesman, in commenting on reports that the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act under discussion in the U.S. Senate is likely to include part of the so-called Taiwan Policy Act of 2022. Now, the policy was previously approved by the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee in September. Well, he emphasized that the Taiwan question is a matter for the Chinese and that any attempt to obstruct China's complete reunification is doomed to fail.
The U.S. has recently kept rolling out Taiwan-related policy acts to contain China with the Taiwan question, with redoubled efforts. In particular, some provisions are intended to strengthen the U.S. military ties with Taiwan and support Taiwan's so-called self-defense. These moves are in severe interference in China's internal affairs, are in serious violation of the One China principle and the 3 China-U.S. joint communiques, and run counter to the solemn political commitment made by the U.S. side to China on the Taiwan question. China urges U.S. to stop playing with fire on Taiwan question.
Away from Asia, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has commenced the airlift of relief materials to rivers and Bayelsa State, some of the states majorly affected by the ongoing flood disaster in part of the country. The operations from the Edo State NEMA office in Benin City will transport non-food aid. NEMA is also collaborating with the Air Force because major roads in the affected states are becoming inaccessible.
The reason why we are lifting is because there is no access road down to these states, and hence the need for also collaborate with Nigerian Air Force to lift this relief material. We are starting today with the lifting of non-food items, and tomorrow we'll continue with the food items.
An Air Force plane waiting on the tarmac of the Benin airport to airlift relief materials to rivers and Bayelsa states for distribution to those affected by the flood disaster. Operations from the Edo State office of NEMA commenced on Tuesday to lift non-food relief materials with support from the Air Force as roads in the affected states are inaccessible. An aerial view of communities affected by flooding shows the extent of the damage and the amount of work that needs to be done. On the ground, it's a beehive of activities at the Port Harcourt International Airport. First to land are helicopters. Then comes the heavy-duty C-130 cargo plane, bringing in NEMA's much-needed supplies from Benin City, the Edo State capital. These are immediately transferred to other transport aircraft, and the fully loaded choppers take off for Igbogene Bayelsa on one of multiple daily flights between both states.
So far, we have lifted over 3,000 bags of rice. We are currently lifting about 1,200 bags of beans and other relief supplies. Overall, the effort of the Nigerian Air Force is part of the military aid to civil authorities in times of crisis like this that the Nigerian Air Force is mandated to undertake as part of their constitutional duties.
At the Igbogene airstrip, the materials are formally handed over to the Bayelsa State Emergency Management Agency before they are offloaded. Then the team proceeds to the Oxbow Lake IDP camp for inspection.
We are very, very grateful to NEMA for this good gesture. Though these things are coming quite late, we've been suffering for some time. You are all aware of the Bayelsa situation. Secondly, we are grateful to the Nigerian Air Force, the Chief of Air Staff. I can recall 2018 flood. The Air Force came with a great medical team here, right in Igbogene here, helped and cured several of our persons who were affected by the flood. Once more, we are grateful to the Nigerian Air Force for this good will of humanitarian gesture.
The stark reality of the situation is explained by the camp controller, who paints a grim picture of the condition she and other internally displaced persons face.
NEMA should help us because there is post-flood crisis. This is just the flood season. After the flood, people will move back to their various homes. We need things that we can use to fumigate places, our various homes. Any efforts will go a very long way.
The miracle governor, they have tried with all the agency in charge coordinating this place. They have given us a very good food and medical treatment. They are taking care of us. They gave us food, they gave us net, and they are helping us so much.
The Nigerian Air Force base in Yenagua, the capital of Bayelsa State, is also completely taken over by flood. Officers and men have to walk through water to attend to their daily security duties. To boost their morale, the Chief of Air Staff comes visiting with some relief materials for distribution to officers and members of the host community. From house to house, they distribute the relief items to residents.
All what I have to say is thank you to God and the authority that have done this. God will continue to bless the authority and us that is living around you.
Aside gifting the officers with relief materials to cushion the devastating effect of the flood, Air Marshal Oladayo Amo embarked on a tour of the Nigerian Air Force Base in Yenagoa.
It's a sorry sight. It's really unfortunate. It's not the making of any man being, but nature. You see, water we always want to find its cause. And of course, we in the military, we take it as if we are in the war front, and we address it as such. The most important thing is to provide succor for the people that are affected.
The Nigerian Air Force says the airlift operations will continue in the coming days, and the hope is that this will help ameliorate the sufferings of those displaced by the flood.
We also hope that the floods, the waters can recede very soon. That's it on the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Nwaka.